Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, before we start the show today, I just wanted to remind you about two books that we have published. 100 Strong Residency Interview Questions, Answers, and Rationales for the Residency Match by myself and Brandon Dyson from TLDR Pharmacy. You can get that in Kindle or audiobook. And then I wrote a supplement called Phone Interview Survival Tips, Job Interview Questions and Answers for Introverts and Extroverts, available on Kindle. It'll be available soon on audiobook, but that phone interview is completely different than the face-to-face. It's only 20-30 minutes, and we'll give you some great advice on that. So check those two out, and here we go. Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I can't believe it's been another year. This is going to be the third annual APhA-ASP Travel Stipend Contest. So $295 stipends to two people at least this year. And all you have to do is get the most Facebook likes on this Facebook post. Why do I do it? I do it because I want to make clear how important your social network is. And I think that many people think, well, I graduate, I get a job, or even I want to change jobs, something like that it just happens. But what you'll find over and over again is that your connections are what get you to the next place. So again, the Travel Stipend Contest is open, and it's going to be open till 11:59 p.m. on February 1st. And that'll be it. Okay, so what do we have for this week? I'm pretty excited to introduce a series that I'm going to do of 4 podcast episodes, 2 with P1 student Caroline Jones, and 2 with my MBA APPE student, PharmD student, also from Drake, Zach, who will kind of outline what it is to get value out of the school. They're not going to say, hey, what's value? This is it. But through these interviews, you'll kind of see what it really means to get value out of your pharmacy school experience. So just a little intro to what they're going to be talking about. So Caroline is now in her P1 year, but has been doing research since she was a sophomore, and wanted to get teaching experience, so she came over to spend January term with me as part of her program. And so she now has 2 years almost of research experience and classroom teaching experience, and she's just about to go back for her spring semester of her P1 year. Also, Zach, who just graduated with his MBA in fall of 2018, is going to be graduating with his PharmD in spring. And so it's just really nice when you're going out into the job market to have those 2 degrees and to have those options. And I think that I was just so impressed with the value that they're getting that we'll have a couple of episodes with each of those. But I wanted to talk this time about your school and how it relates to residency, how it relates to getting jobs. There's some published literature on this in some regard, but I know some of you are saying, look, I'm already like P2, P3, I can't change, or I already graduated, I can't change the school that I went to. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying how to leverage the school that you went to, and some you can leverage a lot more than others, and some you can leverage, unfortunately, a lot less. So let me first tell you about my experience, and then I'll talk a little bit about the way these 2 students are going to be leveraging theirs, or can leverage theirs. So I went to Maryland, and I didn't actually work in Maryland at all when I first graduated. I went to Arizona, and it was very much, okay, you graduated, you have 2 years retail experience, high volume retail experience, you're looking for a retail position. So my schooling matched what I wanted. But then when I went back to Maryland 4 years after living in Arizona, all of a sudden, that's when my alumni network really mattered. And that's when it really mattered to have those other people, because what happened at that time was a number of the students from Pennsylvania came down. There were a ton of schools around the Pittsburgh area and then Philly, and they'd come to Maryland. And so there were very few jobs. So the alumni network was critical in me getting that job 4 years after. And it was kind of crazy how things changed from 97 to 2001, or how quickly they had changed. And then my network was also important as I came to Iowa later on, actually more my wife's network. But those networks and having that pharmacy school was just so important that we do connect so much at the national meetings, and at whether it's APHA and much less for me, ASHP, I always connected. There was always a Maryland event going on. And because of that, we were always connecting every year, at least one time. If you look at the literature, it says that your college does not matter when applying for a residency. And I know that many of the humanities and social sciences have been ripped out of pre-pharmacy. So I'm going to go into a little bit of what law students would have to deal with when they're taking the LSAT, which is logic. So as you're applying, what they're saying is, we will not hold your school against you in your application. We'll still take a top student from a school. But what that does not mean is that your school is necessarily going to send a lot of people to residency. So it means that you still have a chance if you're the best student at a school that doesn't traditionally send a lot of residency students. So Drake, who will be talking to these students over the next couple weeks, actually a month and a half, have the number 2 school for sending students to residency. And so there must be something about the way that they work together with their faculty, with the students that have already graduated, that they would be in such a high position. And there are, I think, 142 schools in PharmCast. I'm just not sure what it is, but that's a pretty high number to get to. And so when they say your school doesn't matter, and I'm talking to the pre-pharmacy students that I meet at DMAC and other places, or that I talk to, your school, it won't be held against you, but there are some schools that are just a lot more likely to send someone to a residency because that's just how they're focused. That's just kind of in their DNA. So it's always important when you're looking at a school to say, okay, well, if I'm even thinking about residency, what's your placement rate relative to other schools? Where are you? Now, what really matters though is, are you getting to your goal, and is your school helping you get there? So if your goal, as Caroline talked to me about this morning when I did the interview with her, and then I'll publish that in a little bit. She has the goal to do residency in hospital and PGY1, PGY2. So when somebody's asking her about the research component, she has a great answer. Since I was a sophomore, I've started working on this research in epinephrine and so forth. What about your teaching? Okay, well, I started teaching when I was a P1. And because these are so unusual in terms of when she's doing them, it also kind of sparks interest. Like, that's cool. Wow. Okay. Well, I want to know more about that. And there's a genuine curiosity on the part of the interviewer. And so I'm sure she'll be successful in whatever she wants to do, not only because of her work ethic, but because she's taken those extra steps. On the flip side, if you're not thinking residency and you're thinking, okay, well, what options are open to me? Well, more options are open to you if you have a very diverse degree set. So my background is in English. That's my undergrad degree. I have a master's in human-computer interaction, which I guess the easiest way to kind of explain what that is, if you look at a website and it's easy to use, then somebody who graduated with an HCI degree might have had something to do with making the usability a lot better. Where you're on a website that is not so easy to use and you can't find things and it's kind of a pain, then they may not have worked well with human-computer interaction. there's just good and bad ways to do things to make things easier for people. And that's what people with that degree do. And in my writing, in the things that I'm creating and content wise, that's the whole point, is to make it easy to use, quick to use, make it part of your day. And then my doctorate or my PharmD is in pharmacy for Maryland. So if I were to go look for a job, I kind of have a choice of these different things. Where it relates to pharmacy is, do you have a dual degree, and does that degree open doors for you? So at Drake, I think it's just another couple grand, but it's no extra time, which is the more valuable thing, to get the MBA. So Zach has his MBA already in fall, and he could actually be working now if he really wanted to, and get a salary or some salary in a part-time job after APPEs, if you would be bold enough to do that. But it's really tough, obviously, with the moving around and the homelessness and stuff like that. But with that MBA, he now can start looking for jobs, not as somebody who is probably going to graduate in 5 months, but someone that already has the degree and has degree in hand, which is a completely different conversation when you're talking about those things. And what I think the most valuable part of that dual degree is flexibility. As you're graduating, life is going to hit you. And when I was growing up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., I didn't say, okay, well, I'm going to move to Arizona after college for 4 years. I'm going to go back to Maryland, and then I'm going to go to Iowa and have a family there. That didn't happen that way. So I needed the flexibility that I had with my undergraduate background, with the jobs that I've worked, and then certainly the network that I got from my own college. So as it comes to, does your pharmacy school matter? It really kind of matters more where, did you, one, go to a school where it's one of the best schools for what you want? So if you want to get a residency, you go to Drake. So if you want to do business, if you have that kind of acumen or that kind of desire, did you get an MBA? Or do you have to now, after school, after student loans and all that, go get 4 or 5 years of work experience, then get into MBA school? Then do you have to leave your regular job to go to MBA? Do you have to pay extra for MBA, executive MBA? Is it going to be something that you even do because you're just done with school? I know that it takes a lot of times kind of some luck, and that you knew what you wanted to do early on, but you should be known for something, and you should be making sure that that something is a couple of things. So although I'm known as the guy that teaches chemistry in college, I also am very good at turning books and content into audio, so much so that I'm actually going to do one. My next one is actually going to hopefully make some headway in assisting students that may have disabilities as it relates to ADA, and trying to give them a richer experience. It just became law that the ADA law has been around for a long time, but the law that kind of said, well, if you are teaching, then your class or online components are part of your website. And if that's part of your website and you're getting federal aid, that needs to be accessible. So it's really great to be able to combine my English degree, my human-computer interaction, pharmacy all together to make a better experience for students. So just kind of the big take-home is, even if you're already at a school, what is it that you're going to get from that school that someone's going to say, wow, you came from the very best? I know there's another school in South Carolina where they have the Walker Leaders Program, and that's 8 students. So 2P1, 2P2, P3, P4, and so forth. And those guys are amazing to talk to. I know that with AACP, you can become a Walmart scholar. And so there are these components at each school, and kind of, if you want to call it the honors college where you would have an undergrad, it's kind of the honors of whatever it is you want to do. And as you're choosing your pharmacy school, or as you're choosing your route within pharmacy school and after, make sure that your alignment, or you're aligned with what you care the most about, and that you can get the most out of your school. So again, APHA stipends are open. It's open for a week. And then I'll check at 11:59 p.m. Central Time next Friday, February 1st, and we'll give those 2 awards away.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.